Hi, Trevor here, reflecting on life through music. Thank you for stopping by. Well, coming again today, you're very, very welcome. I trust you enjoyed my last video on Jeff Beck, the Uncopyable, my very influential guitarist. So I trust you found that one encouraging. Well, going from there to an absolute monster, massive influential piece of music. There is just so much going on in this particular production, this particular piece. I just had to talk about it. And you know, when we get to Jay's, we talk about this guy. He was born in 1943 in Queens, New York. It's around 1966. He was starting to write some musicals, like full scores for musicals and many, many jingles. But the story needs to go back a little bit earlier, right back to the turn of the century, 1895 to 1987. Orson Wells wrote this little story, War of the Worlds. Now, it was in the 1930s that this came a particular radio play, and everyone actually thought the world was being invaded by Martians, because this is what the story was all about. It's all about a grossly inadequate, defenseless Earth being overrun by this absolutely monstrous, well-advanced war machine. And Earth really didn't stand a chance, or did it? And we'll get on to how it all resolved at the end. There have been a couple of movies, and of course the big thing about War of the Worlds is the three-legged tripods and the deathly heat ray that whenever it touches anything, it gets incinerated. But there's something a bit more malicious going on here in the story. The Martians who are facing their own planet extension, looking at Earth with envious eyes and think, hey, let's go and invade that place. It looks so much better than where we are. But there's a bit of a plot hole in this story, which I'll talk about in a little while, which just kind of doesn't make sense, but there we go. And so there's been a couple of movies. 1953 version didn't have legs, Martians with tripods and more floated, but I can't forget the 2005 version with Tom Cruise. Absolutely stunning. Dakota Fanning as well was in that particular movie. Absolutely stunning version of the War of the Worlds. But it was Jeff Wayne who found this story and thought, hey, hang on a minute. There's something pretty cool about this story. And I reckon I'm going to put it to music. And so over a period of time, he worked to buy the rights from the Orson Wells estate to War of the Worlds. And because of that, he was able to use the story, capitalise on the story, and to bring it to music, creating absolute and monstrous work of art. A bit of a combination of string section and incredible musicians, bass guitar, lead guitar and keyboards, so many keyboards on stage. And so it was around 1978 that he released War of the Worlds. Now, this is a 2-record collection, and one of the things that is renowned in this particular record, as it was back in those days, is the artwork. The artwork is absolutely amazing. It got released with some pretty amazing pictures of what it would have been like trying to escape these far superior machines back in the turn of the century. And so War of the Worlds became a bit of a phenomenon. It's actually sold 15 million copies worldwide and won 2 Ivor Novello Awards. It was only going to be a matter of time, though, that we were going to get this thing live on stage. So there's many things that needs to happen. First of all, we've got to work out how we're going to get Richard Burton, he being the narrator of the story, how we can get his voice digitally on screen, and they worked out how to do that. We're going to have to obviously rehearse both the rock band and the strings together to get the sound pretty close. And we're going to have to find the cast that actually performed some of these songs in the live in the recording. Now, not all of them came back, but some of them did, which is pretty cool. So probably the best way to talk about War of the Worlds is to actually go through the story. And let's start with the opening. Now, the only version of the opening I could find was the full-blown thing, which goes for 1 hour and 50 minutes, but you know, it captures the start. So I'll let you play through as much of that as you want. Having the DVD here and not realising that this thing had actually come live to stage was pretty amazing to get this on DVD. So much effort has gone into, obviously we've got a pretty amazing animated picture soundtrack happening all through this as well. We've got tripods coming down the middle of the stage. We've got all sorts of exciting things coming on. So we've got the full-blown ba-ba-ba big orchestra thing at the start. So we've got the full movie at there, but I just really wanted you to watch to capture the opening. But if you end up watching the whole thing, well, so be it. Now, one of the guys that was in the original cast was the iconic frontman from the Moody Blues, Justin Hayward, of course, Nights in White Satin, just one of his classic songs. And he's the voice of humanity, or the journalist who is the narrator of this story. And he comes forward and saying, you know, no one could possibly consider invading Earth, but still they come. So there's an iconic opening scene. But we've also got Forever Autumn and so I suppose that this particular part of the story is the love story, is the humanity of the story. A guy who loves a girl, but they're not together at the moment. A beautiful clip of you loved autumn, you loved that time of year, and kicking your way through the leaves falling. So a beautiful clip of Justin Hayward singing Forever Autumn. Just listen to the start of this, and we've got harps and guitar. It's just beautiful how just the melody and harmony just builds up and builds up and builds up. So we've got Forever Autumn. Now, another guy who was at the start with Thunderchild, and Thunderchild represents our defensive, lack of defensive capability. This little warship, you know, it brings down one tripod but gets melted with the next one. Thunderchild was our last hope of defense. And of course, it only took the Martians 5 minutes to get rid of this thing. But we've got Chris Thompson now. Chris Thompson, very famous in Manfred Mann's Earth Band, Blinded by the Light, a very, very big song for them. He also was a co-writer of You're the Voice, which is, of course, an iconic John Farnham song that not only changed his life, but changed the world. So we've got a very impassioned Chris Thompson singing Thunderchild here. We then get to the spiritual, tormenting, emotional, I suppose, mental side of the story of Pastor Nathaniel, who's saying, hey, the spirit of man is gone. We might as well just give it over, because the spirit of man has gone. And of course, we've got Tara Blaise, as his wife Beth, saying, no, let's not give up quite yet. There might be a little bit more to that. We've got Tara Blaise and Russell Watson going through that whole tormented scene of Pastor Nathaniel. A pretty incredible, compelling scene. The thing I love about War of the Worlds is just the rawness of the lyrics. Very, very raw, very, very emotional, and just captures the whole thing of what is quite a hopeless situation. In the original recording, it was Phil Lynott who did Pastor Nathaniel, but they thought they needed to bring Russell Watson in to play that particular character, so it got the version of that. Then we got Brave New World. The artilleryman comes back. He is in one of the initial scenes where these little guns are trying to fight against these big metal machines. Well, anyway, obviously he finds his own way in the world, and he ends up thinking, hey, let's create a new world underground, because the world above's not the best of things anyway. Let's just give our planet over to the Martians, but let's build a brave new world underneath. So we've got Kevin Clifton's version of that one. It's pretty compelling part of the story, this one. He's really quite keen to get this new thing off the ground, but he has got so little capability. One of the things that he and the journalists do is they play cards, and amongst what is quite a horrible thing that's happening to the world at this point. So we've got Brave New World. A bit of a plot hole in the story. Now, when the Martians decide to invade Earth, because it's got a lot of water and beautiful mountains and meadows and all the rest of it, well, the red weed, which gives Mars its red colour, comes down as well, ends up choking all of the water, choking all of that. So I couldn't quite work out why the Martians would bring the red weed with them. Maybe it was their oxygen supply, who knows? But the red weed ends up choking up all the water. So it's a bit of a plot hole in the story, and I have wondered about that part of the story ever since. Jeff Wayne's on record saying that this was one of the hardest parts of the musical to compose, given the insidiousness of this thing just creeping over the landscape, oozing with ferociousness. How do you get that dissonance? How do you get that beauty? But how do you get the horror of it all at the same time? And so the red weed was an interesting part of the story, I must say. So anyway, it all got to the point for the journalist basically where everyone that he knew, the world that he knew, everything that he knew was just gone, you know, and it became a very, very lonely place. He ends up finding his way to London. Oh, incidentally, going back to Thunderchild, lets a steamer escape, and of course the journalist Love is on that steamer, and they get to escape. So it's a good part of the story there. But he goes into London. London's absolutely dead. Nothing is happening. Of course, one of the cries that the Martians have is this ooh la, and through this desolation of London, you actually hear this ooh la, and then all of a sudden it stops. Now, this is the intriguing part of War of the Worlds. It's how humanity ends up winning, not humanity had anything to do with the winning. But the minute the Martians invaded the world, they were doomed because of bacteria. So the minute this foreign body came to Earth, bacteria went, hang on a minute, you're not on my watch. And they attacked the Martians pretty well from the start. And it was a little bacteria that actually did the Martians in. And who would have thought that something unseen and invisible, despite man's attempts through warships and guns and everything else, they couldn't do it, but bacteria did it. The smallest and most unseen of our allies actually did the Martians in. And so, pretty amazing story, and I suppose a pretty creative way of actually dealing with a force that was far superior to ours. How are we going to get rid of these guys? Because obviously we've got to win at some point. How are we going to do that? Bacteria. So a pretty amazing part of the story. And it was good to see that War of the Worlds actually did come to a bit of an end, and of course Earth resumed back to where it always was. But of course the very end of the story ends with the cylinders and new green flashes coming to Earth again. So are we looking for a second invasion? The Martians having learned their lesson the first time. That's how the story ends. How dare the story do that? But that's where it ended. This has been an absolute force of nature, this particular composition, this work, this force of nature. Jeff Wayne, what incredible personality, what incredible just imagination to bring this story to the musical world and to create not just a work, but a combination of rock and strings together. And it's great to see that in 2006 it did get brought to stage after many years of dreaming about whether this could be possible. So much technology is required. You've got to have really good musicians. You've got to have a really good cast. You've also got to have some pretty good audio visual stuff going, sound, the whole thing, props, the whole thing. So all of that came to life beautifully well. It wasn't without its trials. The audio visual obviously a really big part of the story that didn't go so well at the start. Trying to get Richard Burton's face onto a mask and to project, he did that really well as well. And so it's great to give, I suppose, credence to what is the legacy really of War of the Worlds. If you don't have it, do yourself a favour and get it. Both the CD version, if you're obviously into record LP version is amazing, and also the DVD of it as well. All of them are pretty good. So it's good to give credence to this wild imagination of Jeff Wayne and War of the Worlds. So the links to those, how many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clips in the description below. I couldn't get pristine versions of all of those videos, but you'll get a bit of an idea. And I've also included my last video from Jeff Beck, so if you want to recap on him, feel free. Well, if you come back for another one, or this is your first time to Life Reflections, Your Music, how great to see everybody here. Next time, we're going to get on to Australian songstress Jenny Morris. So until then, I'll catch you around. Bye for now.